Hello, Body of Messiah. Today we're going to cover Lesson 7 of COOH, Come Out of Her. And the title of this lesson is Recognize Baal Worship and Depart from It. Now, Body of Messiah, I'm still going to do another part to COOH Lesson 6 for the Beast and Babylonian System, but God has pressed it upon my heart to go into detail about recognizing Baal worship. And the reason why is regarding some of the turmoil that the United States is facing right now. So I want us to be very clear of what system that we're participating in when we go before the Most High and we pray to Him, or we feel so passionate about certain issues. And we have to be, being the part of the body of Messiah, recognize certain particular systematic practices and things that are associated with Baal worship. Now, I've said many a times that Baal worship goes back to ancient times, from Egyptian time, Babylonian, Greek, Roman, Persian, all throughout history. And it hasn't changed today. A lot of people who are in the U.S. get real comfortable and think that we don't have any type forms of blatant idolatry going on. If it is, it's obvious that we can see it. But I want to prove to you and show that there's some Baal worship that's occurring and people are not realizing it. Like I've said in the lesson 6 about the Beast and Babylonian System. A lot of people at those levels that are lower, that are not higher up in certain organizations, do not realize that they're participating in Baal worship or worship of Asherah. So I want to show this and focus on this so that we can be very clear, because I don't want anyone to go forth being deceived. Now let's revisit this system of Baal worship or what have you. The first time when we encounter Baal worship is when Israel encounters this in Numbers chapter 24 and chapter 25. Now, if you go back and read those chapters, and I did cover a lesson of that in the Why, the whole house of Israel, where I talk about how Balaam tried to curse the descendants of Israel because Balak wanted to curse them. And God would not allow that because they were blessed by God. We're blessed by God. But they found an underhand way to deceive the descendants of Israel by allowing some Moabite women to, along with a few Midianite women, to go and engage some of the Israelite men in sexual immorality, which caused them to bond with Baal of Peor. Now, because of that, there was a plague that broke out that killed up to over 24,000 people before the descendants of Israel had to kill those who were involved in this Baal worship and involved in the deception. They had to put them to death. And there were different means of putting them to death. God instructed Moshe and the men who had not engaged in that to hang some of the ringleaders. Some of them were killed by sword and spears. We know that a grandson of Aaron killed an Israelite man and a Midianite woman with a spear in order for the plague to finally stop. But now let me just mention, it didn't wipe out all of the Midianite people. In Numbers chapter 31, God told the Israelites to go, and those kings who were involved, the Midianite and Moabite kings who were involved in this particular demonic deception, that they were to put them to death. And they killed everyone. This includes women, men, and young boys who were bonding with Baal. They were to be put to death. Now, the virgin girls were not. And the Israelite men were allowed to marry them when they were of age or what have you. But God takes this so serious, this bonding with Baal or Satan. Now let's look at 1 Kings chapter 16, verses 30 through 33. Here we see that King Ahab, who was over Israel, did what was evil in Adonai's eyes. He married Jezebel, who was a Sidonian, and he served Baal. He erected an altar to Baal in Baal's temple, and he erected Asherah poles. Okay? Now we have a king that's erecting these Asherah poles and these altars to Baal. Did wicked before the eyes of God. Now look at 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 19 through 24. Here we have the prophet Elijah. He challenged 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. Pay attention to verse 28. Now, I'm drawing a point for a reason. These false prophets of Baal and Asherah, Elijah mocked them because he knew that their God was false and had nothing, couldn't stand up against the Most High God at all. And so he mocked them because they prayed for hours and hours, hoping that their offering would be consumed by fire by begging or pleasing Baal. And a part of what they did to please Baal was to shed blood. These false prophets cut themselves with swords and spears. So they shed blood in order to honor Baal. Okay? Now I'm going to draw a point here about this. Now, let's go next. We know that, the prophet Baal sucked and nothing happened. But Elijah called on the Most High God, and God sent down fire and consumed all of the offerings, and even these prophets were put to death. Now let's go read Jeremiah chapter 19, verse 1 through 5. And I want you to specifically focus on part of verse 4 and verse 5, where it says, and he's talking about his anger against the nation of Israel because they have done some things involving this Baal worship. It says, they have filled this place with the blood of the innocent. They have built high places for Baal in order to burn their children in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal. And God continues to say, and I want you to really focus on this. God says, this is something I never commanded, never, nor mentioned, nor did it ever come into my mind. God has no purpose and wants nothing to do with the sacrifice of human beings and human flesh. He's the creator of the universe, and he is the creator of us all. He does not require man ever to destroy what he created, human and mankind, as far as sacrificing them. Never has he commanded this, and never will he ever require that of us. Now, I want y'all to keep in mind, this is where this is leading to, because I want us to be clear. When we began to look at all this argument over these monuments and how passionate some people are, even people who are in the body of Messiah, passionate, angry about monuments being removed, I want you to keep in mind a few things. Number one, God has never, ever thrown a fit or had an issue with any type of monuments being torn down, ever. That's not his concern. Monuments to these other gods. For instance, he required the nation of Israel to remove them and to tear them down. That's what he did. Okay? Now, I want you to think about something. And this is historical facts I'm about to cover with you. The Washington Monument, which is an obelisk, one of the biggest ones in the world, along with all of the hundreds of Confederate monuments, were built in the shape of an obelisk. They were mainly erected between 1866 and 1950. Now, they were erected during this period in time, which was after slavery was abolished, but while all the Jim Crow laws were established. Jim Crow laws are laws which justify segregation of Black people and white people. Okay, water fountains, bathrooms, and all that. During this period of time, when these obelisks are being erected, this is also the highest volume of public lynchings to curb innocent Black men and women and children by the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. Now, we know a lot of Black men and women and children, and even the Indian population, the Native American, were slaughtered throughout history. But during this particular period in time when slavery, after it was abolished, you have the highest volumes of lynching by the Ku Klux Klan. The reason why I want you to focus on this is because when we look at the organization of the Ku Klux Klan and their purpose and what they strive for, it was a lot of lynching, bloodshed, hanging, slaughter of innocent people. When you get higher and higher in organizations such as the Ku Klux Klan, it is no mistaking who they're honoring. They're honoring Baal. They're also honoring man, a system in which they're trying to empower man. They're not trying to honor the Most High God, and they're extremely aware of it. So what I want you to understand, there's no mistaking in the eyes of the Most High God, and I want you to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, members in the body of Messiah, these obelisks are nothing but monuments to Baal and Asherah worship. Now, we talk about in the body of Messiah about abortion, which is wrong. It's the shedding of innocent blood, of children, of babies. But you must understand also that when innocent black men and women and children have been slaughtered and lynched, even when they've been shot and they're unarmed and they're innocent of any crime, this bloodshed honors Baal worship. So there should be no mistaking that anyone in the body of Messiah should be arguing and mad because these types of monuments are torn down on a spiritual level. Do you understand what I'm saying? People want to say it's a part of history and honoring a heritage, but this heritage honors Baal. So I want us to be very clear as we move forward, because God, He is roaming to and fro. He's probing our spirit. He's going to make sure whether or not we should be considered among the children of the Most High God. You're going to have to make your election sure of what side you're on. And I don't want to be one who God has obligated to teach the whole truth of His word, to have you going around willy-nilly thinking it's okay to be honoring a system that honors Baal. Now, for those of you who are getting this clear picture for the first time, I pray and hope that you go back and look at my message, which is titled Messiah's Body, regarding Confederate monuments, and understand this about these Confederate monuments. I placed it out there over a year or two ago, even amongst the congregation that I used to attend probably 4 or 5 years ago. So people got to be clear about the spiritual nature of these things so that they won't go down in flames, literally. Okay? Think about this fact. When we read Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 8, God is saying the priests did not ask, where is the Lord? They didn't even ask, where's Adonai? So in the midst of all this conflict that we're seeing right now, we got to ask ourselves, where is Adonai? We got to consult Him. What side would He be on? How would He feel? He's telling us, and I'm telling you, the men who helped erect these obelisks, this is who He's talking to. These priests did not ask, where's Adonai? Those who deal with the law did not know me. They didn't know God. The leaders rebelled against me. The prophets prophesied by Baal, following worthless idols. I want you, if you get an opportunity, to go out and look at some of the ancient artifacts of these statues of Baal. And you'll notice they have this elongated helmet at the top of their head. And what it will remind you of is a garment that some of the Roman Catholic priests would wear, and also Ku Klux Klan, who took it from the Roman Catholic priests. These elongated hats on top of their head. And these, back in ancient times, are statues that show how they viewed Baal. This is what he looked like. Now, there's statues of him that look like the one with the, what do you call it? The big head of a horse or head of a bull or something like that. But there are also statues of this elongated hat that he has on his head. And so make no mistake that these men who were in these organizations did not ask, where is the Lord? They didn't know God, and they rebelled against him. They weren't raising these monuments to honor people. They were honoring something, all right, but it wasn't people. If you find yourself realizing for the first time there is nothing outside of our natural or spiritual realm that God cannot forgive, because he gave his only begotten son. When the Israelites realized that they had done and served Baal, they repented, and this happened over and over again. Judges chapter 10 verse 10 shows us here that the Israelites cried out to Adonai. They said, we have sinned against you, forsaking our God and serving the Baals. So they were serving these Baals, different versions of him. So make it clear that you have to come before God and be repentant. Look at Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 4 through 6. God vowed when there were people whose heart were hardened and they didn't want to turn away from these Baals and serving them, God vowed to destroy every remnant of Baal worship, the names of all the idolatrous priests, and all who worship Baal. So understand that these things that are coming down now is a part of some prophetic words. I will add a link probably in the description of this particular lesson so that you can go and see that probably about 3 or 4 years ago or so, it has been prophesied that it will be a remnant or a people that is raised up that will challenge these prophets of Baal. And that's what's happening right now. And I want, body of Messiah, for you all to be on the right side. So make your friends aware. If you have friends out there who are engaged in this foolishness of arguing over keeping these monuments, share this lesson with them or just teach them verbally. You're obligated. You're God's child. And what we need to do is urge as many of our people who call themselves a part of the body of Messiah to spiritually come out of her. Come out of her if you are God's people. You do not want to partake of all the judgments that are fallen. So please come out of her. Well, body of Messiah, this is the end of lesson 7. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope it was eye-opening for you. And as I always say to you, may Adonai Elohim cover you and shower you and your family, shield and protect you with his shalom peace. Goodbye.